Hello everyone, welcome to another Making Monday Lovable video. And today I'd like to talk with you about money and trust with regards to scientific illustrations. And specifically because I recently encountered a really interesting situation. And so I got contacted by a researcher to help with illustrations, and he was working at the university in Umeå, where I did my PhD as well, not the same department though. And then we set up a meeting, and I actually went physically to the department because that's something that I personally really like, because usually it's Zoom meetings or Teams meetings online, because my clients could be all over the world. So when I have the opportunity to go to an actual office and meet with a scientist, I do that. So we met, and it was the three of us, the researcher, a postdoc, and the PI, so the group leader of the research team. And we discussed for like 1.5 hours what they need. You know, we scribbled like tons of pieces of paper full of scribbles and sketches and so on and so forth. So it took like 1.5 hours, the whole meeting. And, you know, throughout the meeting, like the whole situation loosened up because none of them knew me personally. And I was contacted through LinkedIn. So, I mean, it's a gamble for them. They don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. So I noticed throughout the meeting, the whole feeling of the meeting and the situation between the four of us, you know, got loosened up a bit, and we're making jokes and laughing as well. And it was very, very pleasant. And then in the end, you know, I clarified everything, and then I directed my last question to the PI, asking how it is about budget generally, because I always give this question, like if it's not spoken about from their side, I always initiate that question, but only in the end. And then he said, you know what, I have no idea. I've never worked with a scientific illustrator before, so I don't know. And then throughout the meeting, I got a rough idea of the workload and, you know, my general estimations on how it is to work with a new client who I don't know how the revision rounds are going, and like my general experience. So I said like, well, based on what we discussed now, I would estimate this and that amount of money. And then the funniest thing ever happened. The researcher that contacted me, he blurted out like, "What? That's a lot. It's like almost like a full month's salary," he said. And then I laughed, you know, and it was a very easygoing atmosphere. So the fact that, and it happened the first time ever in almost 5.5 years, that somebody just opens up about this and just says this type of, you know, oh, that's so much money, like a whole month of salary. It never happened to me. And then we started sharing. So I told him, like, from my perspective, I described with him exactly how it is from a business perspective, because the PI actually said like, yeah, sounds reasonable. So I had these two different reactions from two different people in very different positions. So then I started to explain how it is that it's generally like a standard rate that I have, or a standard amount of money to ask for and for this type of a workload. And I said, being a business, living in Sweden as well, half it, because almost half of it goes to the tax office basically, and that's excluding the VAT that the PI has to pay and I pay to the tax office. I'm just like a mediator basically. So I said, and if you cut it in half, it's not as much anymore. And so I basically explained how it looks from the business side, and then I also explained the fact that, you know, they all said none of them has any artistic skills whatsoever, so they need somebody to help them. So if they would actually explain to them, like, if you would, like, all the time, the effort, the money, the resources, everything that goes into that science that you described to me, it's so much money. And later when you want to present it somewhere or publish it somewhere, and you have squares and circles, it's not at all representative of what you have been doing, the effort and everything you put in. It's like your business card, basically. If you have it properly visualized, everybody else will see it, will remember you. It will give you a lot more value than just, the money and the illustration, everything behind. You don't have to sit on it. Like, you wouldn't be able to sit a month and deliver something in the same quality and the same speed that I can, focusing on only that, because you have so many more things to do, and that's just not your expertise, that's not your specialty. So I explained all the different hidden values as well that people sometimes don't see that it brings to them. And like they openly said, it's a first time thing for them. It's an experiment, just like for me. If it goes well, if they're happy, they come back to me again. So that was from the get-go, that was like said even before we really had this 1.5 hours meeting. So they were very aware of the importance of it and of visualizing properly the science that they do. And we spoke about it afterwards as well. We covered all kinds of things, and later I went to the one that contacted me in the office, and we continued speaking about it, and I shared a couple of more details with him. And I said, the thing is, if you are employed by somebody, you don't, like, at least the same amount of money goes to other types of pots of money from a PI, be it overhead for the department, any type of tax things, anything. They have to pay so much more for anybody they employ. They know exactly how much experiments cost, how much renting the facilities cost, how much outsourcing technology, for example, they can do to another department. So as a PI, compared to a researcher or a postdoc or a PhD student, you have a very different view on money and the money pots you have and what goes where, how. So if you pay a couple of thousands, for an illustration, it's basically nothing. So but that you don't have the insight about all of that as a researcher, a PhD student, or a postdoc again. So it is not a surprise for me that a PI would react in that way, but somebody that doesn't sit on all the money pots in the research, that doesn't have the overview over all of these things, is, for them, it's a surprise. So yeah, and then we start talking also about trust, because it's a lot about, if they don't trust me, they would never pay for such a service. They had no idea how much it will cost, how it will look, how it is to work with me, because they've never met me, most likely seen illustrations on LinkedIn, and like that contacted me. So for them, it's a complete gamble again. And in that meeting, to interact with people, either in real life or in initial meeting, it's very crucial to be able to build trust and to be super open and honest. If they would have wanted something from me that I can't do, I would have had to tell them. Like, that's my ethical and moral obligation, I feel. And that's also, I don't mind to share how much, it would cost and why, and what are all the, factors that you need to calculate in it. Because I live in Sweden. We have a very, high tax rate, and it's a different country than, for example, like economically speaking, than, for example, Poland, where I was born in. People in Poland, researchers in Poland, won't be able to afford my services because I have to charge a certain rate to be able to live in Sweden. So it's also like you have this economical differences between countries and people where they live, and living standards that also have to be calculated. So it all goes in, and I am like super happy to be able to speak with people about it and share it so openly, so they get an insight, and that brings them trust, so they know exactly, okay, where their money goes, why, how, and if it makes sense or not. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I love this, and I actually told all three of them in the meeting, this never happened to me, and I love it. I feel it's so nice and so good of you that you've just asked it like that, because I'm happy to explain any of this. So, and this type of openness and willingness to share and be transparent is super important, because this is how trust is built. And there's nothing to hide. If they wouldn't have been able to afford it, they could have said it, and I wouldn't have taken it personal. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you for today. I hope you have a great Monday, and talk to you next week. Bye bye.